before I start, a disclaimer. Okay. I realized that when I finished the movie and I was giving like my rundown of it, it essentially became like a rant. And I felt like people would get distracted by the emotion, try and defend Superman, feel attacked, feel like they had to justify, how they felt about the movie. And I felt like all of that would get in the way of us having an intelligent discourse. So what I've set out to do is to clearly, right, as clearly as I can, just break down what I thought about Superman 2025 and why I had the experience or the reaction to it that I did, so that when I give it its final rating, you can understand, even if you don't agree. This is not right to say that if you love Superman 2025, you're wrong. If you thought it was better than Man of Steel, you were wrong. Me, personally, I would give Man of Steel its flowers. It may not have been like the most comic book accurate representation, but the way I always saw it, it was that it was an interpretation by a particular director, and I think it worked on the whole. It worked more than it didn't work, right? This is not to say that I am like the holy grail of Superman knowledge. I haven't had much interaction with the comics. I've only watched like the movies, like the 1985 movie, I think the 1990s movies, and then, Man of Steel, the cartoons, the Justice League cartoons. Those are my primary frameworks, and then a little bit of Smallville, right, for Superman. So I in no way claim to be an expert. This is simply what I think, right, based off of my experiences. Superman 2025, when I was Superman, okay, just rip them out of there, is a 8 out of 10 movie for me. I loved the world that it was situated in. I thought it was really bright. Loved the colors, loved the visuals, loved his suit, right? James Carswell himself was fine, the man, fine. All of that was great. I loved his chemistry with Lois Lane. This woman looked at this man and I said, Jesus. Their spouses are the world's strongest soldiers, because that's crazy. Okay, loved their chemistry. Loved sort of their friendship with Jimmy Olsen. Loved how Perry sort of had a bigger role to play than we normally see him having, and how they all sort of came together to save the day. Appreciated sort of the twist on the Justice League as a Justice Gang. I thought for them, the irreverent tone that James Gunn took actually worked pretty well in giving them a bit more rough around the edges, punk rock type vibe, I even enjoyed Lex Luthor in the beginning. I thought he did a good job of, representing sort of the casual wickedness and the articulated malice, right? That represents Lex Luthor. He kind of faded out for me, but we'll talk about that later on. I loved like Superman's relationship with his dad. I know that technically in the story his dad is meant to die, and that's part of what shapes him, but I'm a firm believer that when people are doing sort of like these interpretations, right, of a story, as long as they're clear that what they are doing is an interpretation and is not meant to replace canon, I feel like I'm not going to be so bothered about it not being exactly like the original content. As long as whatever you do works, I'm good with it. So I don't really mind the fact that his dad didn't die. I thought their discussions, his show of emotionality was like a display of like healthy masculinity that I appreciated. It was cute to see, his relationship with Four, also pretty cool, right? I appreciated the fact that Crypto was revealed to be his cousin's dog, because Superman was getting heat for that. And I have feelings about the dog. We're going to talk about the dog as well. Okay, so the fact that he wasn't Superman's dog actually helped me, because if I add Superman into Superman 2025, Superman actually becomes like a 5 out of 10 movie for me. If I wanted to be generous, considering everything that did sort of go right, then I might say a 6 out of 10. But honestly, my immediate reaction upon watching, for me, 5 out of 10 experience. So let's break it down. Okay, number one, Superman as average man, right? Superman as mediocre. Right from the beginning of the movie, in these scrolling credits, we see that this is like 3 minutes ago and Superman has just been defeated for the first time, and it's set up to be this monumental occasion. So I'm excited. I think we're going to be introduced to this insane villain that has done something that so few people should be able to do, where not only was Superman defeated, but he was defeated so badly that he lost access to his powers. And that is crazy, right? Number one, the villain ends up being nothing much. The villain, Hammer of Bavaria, when we get introduced to him, it's not even clear that the villain is strong because he's strong. It's represented as, oh, he's able to be Superman because Lex Luthor is doing square, square, triple X, square, square.
X circle, X, double left square, right trigger down, square, square.
I didn't even feel anything for the Hammer of Bavaria. Like, oh snap! You know the evil guy in Mulan? How he shows up and you're like, damn. No aura, no nothing. Superman had no aura. The villain had no aura. There was no respect on either of their names. Number two, right? Or let me say 1B, right? Flowing from the first point. The fact that in that first battle, when we see Superman bleeding, there's no reaction. There's no internal emotional impact to him having lost his first fight and having lost it so badly. There's no sign that Superman himself is confused, bewildered, scared, overwhelmed, asking himself, what happened? How could this person beat me? Who is this person? Who is this guy? Where did this guy come from? Because normally, when you're the strongest, when you're at the top and something manages to overthrow you and you can't process how it's possible, there should be some concern. Some. But Superman takes it in stride. He acts like it's normal. Like he gets beaten like that every day. And that is not only a direct contradiction to the credits that they rolled at the start of the movie, which it's 5 minutes and already your movie is contradicting itself, but also it's a direct contradiction to the concept of Superman. Yes, there are times when Lex Luthor will set a trap and there's kryptonite or he has to save someone and he sacrifices himself. But on the whole, Superman is so strong that if there are not extenuating circumstances, no one should be able to just beat him like that. When you see Superman getting beaten like that, usually it's an intergalactic threat. It's not just something rolling around on the earth over here. So the fact that Superman had no concern, no reaction, no fear, no nothing, which could have been part of his story, part of his question of, am I even good at this? Is this my purpose? Am I right to try and do this? They could have added that to the questions that Lois Lane was asking and given us some complexity and given us some genuine vulnerability, like emotional vulnerability, and given Lois Lane a chance to support him in that. But they just threw that opportunity away, right? You could talk about the mistakes thing, but you never showed us that he was aware that he was making a mistake. There was nothing that he did, from just getting defeated by the Hammer of Bavaria to rushing back into battle without any sort of thought, review, analysis, to surrendering himself to Lex Luthor because of the dog. You never once suggested that he viewed it as a mistake. You made it seem like he thought, and we were supposed to think, that he was doing the right thing. So again, this central end message of, oh, I'm human because I make mistakes and I get back up again is stupid. You didn't even show that in your own movie. You just had them beat his ass. And that takes me to 1C. I feel like I spent the past 2 hours watching Superman get his ass beat. He'll get his ass beat, then he'll get up, get his ass beat, then get up, get his ass beat, and get up, get his ass beat, and and I mean, clearly that was what James Gunn was going for, but I feel like If you're trying to tell this story of, oh, Superman isn't that strong, Superman is just like your average metahuman, just that he can fly, but he's not special. He's just about as strong as all of them, if not a bit weaker, really, than Mr. Terrific and the Green Lantern in this, if not a bit weaker. I feel like what that does, when you strip Superman of his powers and you try and act like he is just a normal everyday man in a suit who just so happens to be able to fly, just so happens to be able to have lasers and freeze breath, but he's not super. What you do is that you fundamentally destroy part of the complexity, the nuance, and the integrity of the character. Part of what makes Superman Superman is the fact that on Earth, he reaches almost God tier ability. He is insanely strong. When he turns evil, Superman is beating everybody. Everybody's running, everybody's scared.
This guy's gonna kill us.
He's not a joke. James Gunn. He's not someone to be played with, right? His power, number one, gives him a certain natural gravitas, a certain natural aura, a certain natural awe. The moment Superman steps into a room, the air shifts, it changes, it must. Because now a person with power to decide how things go and to shift outcomes is here. Things are not the same before Superman and after Superman. It must necessarily be so. That's number one. Number two, Superman's power is part of what adds to the question of who is this person to be able to wield this power? What right does, I want to say Kal-El, not even Clark Kent, what right does Kal-El have to be acting as a free agent, to be stopping wars, to be lifting up presidents for private chats? How do we know he will never turn on us? It is what validates Lex Luthor's concern and what takes, Lex's concerns from, oh, it's just like a crazy megalomaniac who is like freaking out, to, oh, he has a point. There is a reason why things are unfolding the way they are unfolding. It gives a certain common sense to events, right? When we realize that Superman is a being of God tier abilities. But when you dumb him down and you make him average man and he spends the entire movie getting his ass beaten, suddenly all those important questions we asked during his interview with Lois Lane about what right do you have to do this and how do we have a free agent with this much power just flying around, all those pertinent important questions no longer matter. He's getting his ass beat. Nobody's concerned that he's gonna try and take over the country. Look at him. He can't even stand. The nigga can't stand. Right? Superman's power forms a fundamental part of his personality. With great power comes great responsibility. His power is the thing that has always, from the cartoons, from Smallville, from the movies, encouraged him to reach out to help others because he recognizes that he has the ability to. It is why Kal-El feels so responsible, because he understands that really there is very few people who he cannot save, and it's why he takes it so hard when he does not show up for people. When you dumb his power down, when you weaken him, when you act like he's not as strong as he really is, when you don't want to recognize it because you feel like it will get in the way of the story you want to tell of him being average man, human, what you do, right, is that necessarily you strip Superman of that internal conflict that exists just by him being as strong as he is. You strip him of a certain amount of separation that occurs just by the fact that his hug can break bones. He has such a level of power that the weight of the world is literally on his shoulders. You cannot have a Superman that is Superman without the weight, because the weight shapes everything. It shapes how close he's willing to let people to get. It shapes his willingness to let his family and his friends help him, because he's like, if I'm carrying the weight of the world, I don't want to put this weight on you. I feel like I might crush you with it. And it shapes his journey towards intimacy with Lois and his family and his mother and even his friends, saying, no, it's okay. Like, we can't carry the world, but we can carry you. Like, give us pieces of it. But the moment you make him weaker than he should be, you lose all of that delicious character work. And I feel like James Gunn's Superman spending half his time on the ground just getting his ass beat. Just scrap all that. Scrap all the complexity. Scrap it.
You're bruised, but you don't kill, do you? Clarke.
But if you're not showing me God tier power, the impressiveness of that self-control, lost. Point number 2, okay? Which would be overall just a very simplistic rendering of Superman, right? James Gunn, as I mentioned before, has not given us Clark Kent and Superman. James Gunn has given us Clark Kent, full stop. Clark Kent in a Superman suit. Clark Kent at work. Clark Kent. That's it. And yet my understanding of Superman fundamentally is that he is 3 primary personas. He is Clark Kent, he is Kal-El, the last son of Krypton, and then he is Superman, right? Usually when you have a hero, you have like the dominant personality, the original personality. You have Peter Parker, then you have Spider-Man. And Spider-Man sort of becomes the symbol, the superhero persona, right? That is meant to embody all that the primary persona, Peter Parker, wants to be and what he wants to put into the world and achieve, right? You have Bruce Wayne, then you have Batman. All right. It feels like James Gunn essentially created a parody of Superman, right? Throughout the movie, there was this irreverent tone whenever Superman was concerned. It starts from right from the beginning when we meet him beaten down, broken in the eyes. And instead of care or concern, we're encouraged to laugh because Crypto shows up and takes his leg and pulls it into a split. And it's like, oh, Superman hurt his balls. And that tone keeps on throughout the entirety of the movie, so that even scenes that should be serious, even scenes where Superman should show up as a serious hero, as a force to be contended with, as a person who is able to shift the outcome, it still just feels like it's being played for a joke. He's a joke throughout the entire movie. And it doesn't feel like James Gunn is encouraging us to laugh with him. It feels like James Gunn is encouraging us to laugh at him. Like I'm being nudged all the movie like, you get it because he's supposed to be strong, but he's getting that big, you know? Don't you love it? And it's like, no. I actually like Superman. I actually respect him. I don't think it's funny that you're treating him like he's a dumbass. It's to the point where Mr. Terrific outshone Superman in his own movie. And even like Green Lantern, to some extent, outshone Superman in his own movie. Literally, every single character and hero that was not Superman, I think I've even said this, was better than Superman in his own movie. It's ridiculous. Kung Fu Panda in Kung Fu Panda 2 was a better Superman than Superman in this movie. It's one thing if you're genuinely creating a parody and you're like, oh, this is a parody. Then everyone knows what you're trying to do. But James Gunn set up his Superman as like a serious thing and then spent the whole movie letting him get his ass kicked, letting him do the splits. Dog is just jumping on him. He's getting kicked in the balls. He's getting, like, why? I can't relate to Superman and respect him. Superman can be emotionally vulnerable and be a serious hero. Even Star-Lord ended up being more of a serious hero that Superman did in this movie, because Peter Quill will joke around and do his la 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 la, but when it's time for him to get serious, he got serious. There was never a tonal shift. This entire movie had that same joke all throughout, and I didn't appreciate that. I really did not. At the end of the day, everyone had to save Superman. The dog had to save him. Lois Lane had to save him. And I feel like he can be powerful, he can be strong, he can be effective, and still need teamwork, and still have areas where he has to trust other people to do things, and still have emotional concerns that he's able to put to his family and his friends. Like, you didn't have to make him so whack and so weak to tell the story you wanted to tell. You have this baby who comes from another planet, who crash landed on Earth, who was raised on Earth, but must necessarily, right, experience a certain separation. He has this longing for a planet he's never seen, parents he's never known, a family and a world that he's never experienced, but would want to. So many questions about who he would have been if he had grown up there, and what they were like, and what they would have wanted for him. We got glimpses of that in the movie, but the point is, there's a part of him that will never fully be from Earth, right? For the people on Earth, his powers separate him. They must. He gets mad, he throws a punch, he has a fight like normal boys do, he does things normal people do, and people around him start dying. He will never be fully one of us. He cannot be. But that, the pain of that, the conflict of that, is part of what makes him Superman. I feel like that opens the door for us to consider, real world applications where we relate to Superman. So there's this thing that sometimes happens where it's like, even though I'm born in the US, raised in the US, and it's like I'm of the US, people in the US look at me and I'm other. I'm black, I'm Asian. I don't, if for example at home, my parents who immigrated from our home country are teaching me the language, I may have a bit of an accent. I may have other things that for people who are born and raised in the US, no other home country, no immigrant history, is like, oh, I'm not quite of, there's something that separates me, right? And then simultaneously, it's like when I meet kids from my home country, it might be that they look at me and they say, oh, you are so of the US that you're no longer really part of your home country, right? Babe, you don't like the food we do, you don't speak the language that we do, you don't interact and respond to things the way we do. So what you have with people who were born in a country that was not their original home country, if you will, right, is this duality of simultaneously belonging and not belonging, simultaneously being enough and being not enough. And they hold that conflict, right? And that contradiction in tandem. And so when you give Superman his three personas and you recognize Kal-El and you recognize his story, instead of papering over it and whitewashing him as Clark Kent, and whitewashing just in the sense of like acting like everything is hunky-dory and it's perfect, what you do is that you give us the opportunity to relate to Superman simultaneously belonging and not belonging, Superman simultaneously being enough of the earth and not being enough of the earth. But here, with the Clark Kent that James Gunn created, it's just like, oh yeah, Clark Kent is here, he has his newspaper job, everything is perfect, he's human, he's there's no I don't belong, there's no my powers get in the way of me having connections or relationships, there's no protecting my Superman persona, right, gets in the way of me being able to have friends or interact, which takes me to point number 2, which is that even though James Gunn only really recognizes Clark Kent and not Kal-El and not Superman in terms of the personas of Superman, his Clark Kent is also a simplified version of Clark Kent. James Gunn creates a Clark Kent that doesn't seem to care that he has an alter ego to protect. If people knew who that Clark Kent was Superman, if they made that link, it's not just like he would lose his job. No, they would come after him, they would come after Lois, they would come after his family and his parents and anyone associated with him, which is why it was so important that no one know that Clark Kent is Superman. Yeah, James Gunn has him flippantly saying and doing things that any person with half a brain would eventually be able to put together that, oh, actually, why do you have this kind of relationship? You might just be Superman, right? But we don't see any of that. We don't see a distinction in personality between Clark Kent and Superman. He's the same all throughout, one note, one tone. We don't see him caring about whether he reveals that he's Superman. We don't see him taking any care to protect his identity. All that complexity and nuance, all that necessary compartmentalization, right? Because he must compartmentalize, because when you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, right, it affects how you interact with people, it affects who you can be friends with, it affects who you let in and who you let see vulnerable and who you let know your truth. There's necessarily a certain wall between you and the world. It must be, it cannot be otherwise, right? But that is part of the nuance and the complexity of Superman. But when you just make him Clark Kent and you take away that consideration, you lose all of that juice, the delicious juice of the character. Just say point number 3, which is that just the very unimpressive utilization of Superman's powers. For the most part during the movie, you had instances where I'm expecting him to use his powers because it's a very obvious, like, you're floating in the Proton River, you need to get the raptors off of you because you're holding a baby. Use your lasers. We spent 10 minutes watching this man fumble and go to the point where I thought, like, oh, he can't use his lasers because he's out of power, not realizing, no, he's not out of power, it's just for nonsense dramatic effect. And I'm like, what is that? There are so many points in the movie where Superman could have simply used his powers to get out of a situation or to make it better, and he didn't. When he saved the building from the alien and you turn back and you saw the flames and he gave his little hand wave to the woman, he didn't put out the flames. And I'm like, bro. Which also leads me to, I don't know, something about the way they filmed it. Like, Superman felt so slow. He felt so slow. So... He saved that little girl from the alien, right? And I'm thinking he's gonna save the girl, he's gonna save the black guy. He saves the girl, and then he apparently doesn't have enough speed to save the black guy, so he's just like, be careful. And I'm like, bro, be faster. Like, Why is what? 2 people is his limit now? He actually, 1 person is his limit now. Superman can't save more than 1 person at a time now. That's what we doing. Bet. My third, actually, let me say my fourth point, right? My fourth dislike of Superman 2025 is just the way James Gunn goes out of his way to scream at us that Superman is a good man. Like, the entire movie is him saying, he's a good man, Savannah! And I'm like, yeah, no, I know. So I like him. I know. People act like James Gunn's Superman is like the only Superman who has ever saved civilians. Ever. And I'm like, no. It has been a central part of his character since the 19 Kojo movies. He's always showing up, saving the cat in the tree, giving it to the little girl. That is one of the fundamental pictures of Superman. That cat in that tree. And him going out of his way to pick the kitty for the little girl and helping the old lady cross the road. Superman has been doing this since. James Gunn hasn't shown us anything new. Right? But number two, he creates scenarios that don't exist. You have like 100-foot whatever tall alien, and this little girl is walking around. She doesn't even care about the alien. Apparently she sees aliens all the time, so she's just walking around with her back to the alien, almost getting squashed. It's so fake. It's fake. Superman comes to save her. There's a black guy in the building. He can't apparently save this girl and save the black guy. No, he has to save the girl, and then his powers is kaput. Superman saves a squirrel whilst the cars and everything are being moved by the alien, and I'm like, cool. You saved this one squirrel. Nice. So the 10 other squirrels that died in all the trees and the things that were whipping around, what about them? James Gunn is not serious, bro. Actually gave me this close-up shot of him saving this girl like it's supposed to make me feel something. All the squirrels and the bears and the insects that's died that you did not save, what about them? You only save one thing at a time. All the other animals that were dying, what about them? I get the concept of him being like a more personal hero, and so instead of showing him saving 10 people, you show him save 1 person. So it's like, oh, this 1 person has this kind of bond with Superman, but it's not like those people ever show up ever again. Like it doesn't matter. Them making the central conflict one of identity, I think I mentioned that was something I didn't enjoy, because to me the conflict was a one of purpose, right? If James Gunn had recognized Superman's powers from the beginning, right, we would have had cause to ask ourselves, like Lex Luthor was asking and like Lois Lane was asking, what gives this man the right to wield this kind of power? Why should we trust him with it? And why we should trust Superman with this power is because of his character. And his character is shown in, even though he is so strong, his decision not, right, to use his powers to get his own way, even though it would be easy to. Okay, but they were acting like I don't know who I am because my parents sent me here with a video and the video was different, and so the person that I've been suddenly doesn't exist. And it's just like, bro, they sent you here for a purpose, and now you are asking yourself, what is the validity of the purpose that you have been carrying out if the basis, the foundation of the purpose has shifted? And so I thought it would have been a great opportunity to have Superman reconnecting with the people he's supposed to save, where we see that it's like, oh, I'm here to help people. It doesn't matter like what my parents' video said. And we got some of that in his conversation with his dad, but like perhaps it's because his final battle was with the clone, I was it would have been great to see him connect with the people he was trying to save. He lifted the building for that one woman, but that, I don't know. I just didn't feel the connection, bro. I didn't. This whole thing with Jimmy as like a Casanova, did not get it, did not understand. If it's a joke in the comments, fine. But I think the reason why it didn't work for me was that he spent so much time looking like it was such a bother to be considered attractive by very attractive women. And it's just like, okay, can you relax? And you trying to play like he doesn't know that that fine ass girl is fine is crazy. Did you see that woman? Yeah, so I didn't get the Jimmy thing. I didn't understand why I had to be there. Lex Luthor started off like a really strong villain, and then for me, he faded, right? Getting to the end, he faded, and he started seeming more like a pouty child than a serious, villain. Like Lex Luthor is very cold, very calculating, very intelligent, and it's his intelligence that makes him a danger. But by the end of the movie, it was like the scope of Lex Luthor's intelligence was just, this whole thing about, I've plotted out his moves, X squared, triple X square, and it's just, I don't know. By the end of it, he just looks like a pouty child. Hawk Girl was like, I don't know what that was. Her screech, for whatever reason, the sound was just terrible for me. I hated that. I did. And I would have thought that the movie would have benefited actually from more of Lois Lane and Clark Kent's relationship. They have that initial meeting, and then we go almost like quarter way through the movie before we get to see them together again. And I just thought that we could have utilized a bit more of that central chemistry. Yeah, as you can see, I have a lot of points. Okay. These are all the reasons why, in consideration of like Clark Kent Superman, I ended up giving this a 5 out of 10. Ultimately, I may end it with 6 out of 10, and I have to bump up Fantastic Four, because I watched Fantastic Four and I thought to myself, okay, it's pretty good. It's pretty nice. CGI, it's fun. The characters are who they're supposed to be. I wish I had seen more of Reed Richards stretching, more of Ben the Thing. And I wish that we had gotten a bit more, personality, especially from someone like Sue. Kind of faded into the background a bit behind the whole I'm a mom, save my baby thing, but like, whatever. I was looking at it, I was like, well, 2005, they did Fantastic Four. It didn't have a previous movie, as far as I'm aware, to stand on. And I loved it. It was gorgeous for me. I watched that thing over and over and over again. And so if in 2025 you're telling a story, and your story is even helped by the fact that I can refer to 2005 and be like, oh, the reason why it's so cool that Johnny was able to figure out the language is because he's portrayed as this kind of character, and I see that even more clearly in 2005 than I do in 2025. If you have created a movie and you're being helped so much by a previous movie and you still just manage to be just pretty good, then it's like, what have you really done? So I give Fantastic Four a 6 out of 10. That was like my experiential rating. But if I'm looking at it as a whole, like objectively, I think Fantastic Four have to come to a 7, because say what you will about them, but at least they stay true to their character. Like, I don't feel like they mangled, and maybe mangled is strong. I don't feel like, right, they took just one facet of their characters and ignored everything they didn't want to see, that they felt wouldn't match up to the specific story that they wanted to tell about that character, the way Superman did. Okay? Because at the end of the day, what I think is happening is that so many people are reacting to the way in which Superman 2025 is different from Man of Steel. And they're taking different to be better. Listen, do what you gotta do. But in terms of enjoyment, I did not enjoy the way Superman was portrayed in Superman 2025 at all. Did not. I legitimately got the ick. I don't like it. I can't stand it. I can't take it. I'm sorry. Superman as a joke, Superman as weak, Superman as pathetic, Superman getting beaten all the time, Superman as this skipping in the forest sort of character that doesn't consider any of the mental and emotional weight that actually comes with being Superman and beyond. I'm sad because I lost my dog. It's crazy to me. All right, but that's me. My very good friend told me I would love Superman 2025. In fact, in his exact words, he said, he's exactly your type. And I said, okay, cool, bet. And my friend said, well, I asked my friend, so what do you mean by my type? Just because I wanted to be sure, you know. And he said, oh, you know, like that golden retriever, like good guy, puppy dog vibe. And I said, okay, cool, bet. You know me. I appreciate it. Superman is my favorite superhero, right? Since the 80s. Literally. From Superman, like what, 1985? Favorite superhero. And my brother likes to make fun of me because his favorite superhero is Batman. And so he's like, oh, the only reason you like him is because he's like a goody two shoes, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yes. He's a good man, Savannah. Who doesn't want a good man? Especially in this 2025 that we live in. What? No, stop it. Stop it. You're never going to be able to make me to stop liking Superman. And then I watched Superman 2025. Oh, I watched Superman 2025. And it ickmatized me. It ickmatized me so hard. And because he's so strong, they always have to find some reason, some way. Lex tricks him. There's kryptonite somewhere. He has to sacrifice himself to save someone. And so there's always some way in which he ends up being defeated. And I'm like, cool. No problem. That's part of the journey, bro. It makes it more fun. I get it. As long as they do it in a reasonable way, where it's like, I can understand why that happened. I can flow with you. No worries. He needs to be stopped because even though Lex is driven by envy, and even though Lex is predicting a problem that hasn't arisen yet, we've seen evil Superman. We've seen that there are substances that cause Superman to lose control. We've seen that it's not completely out of the realm of possibility for Lex Luthor to be concerned. Not because Superman as Clark Kent in full control of his powers is necessarily a threat, but because he could become one. It's a valid point. But if he's weak, man, if he's average, man, if he's mediocre, man, it don't matter. He's gonna get his ass beat